It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio with us. About it. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October, so we've got James Tobin and Traci Shulbin with the Prescott Valley Police Department here. They are with the Family Violence Unit, and we're going to talk about domestic violence, and hopefully, I guess what I want to get out of the show today is how to help the men and women who are victims of domestic violence to get out of those situations and go find someplace else to live, I guess. And we were talking just before the show that it's what did you call it, James? You called it a complicated situation in order for them to get out. So thanks for coming down today.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Prescott Valley Police Sergeant Brandon Bonney set this one up too. Last week we had a suicide chat and he set that up for us. We appreciate that. Let's get into it. What is domestic violence? Because it's different from what it was probably when I was a kid.
Well, and we more so use the term family violence now.
Okay.
But it's about the same thing. And there's a range of crimes associated with that. Assault, disorderly conduct, stalking, kidnapping, endangerment, strangulation. And so if you have an element of the crime, like, you know, one of those things I just described, with a certain type of defined relationship with the people involved. And that's even broadened since I started. So it can be husband-wife, common law, man and woman. Can also be same-sex. Can also be adults living together as roommates. Family members, you know, parents and children, siblings. So it's pretty broad. So if we have an incident that occurs and that relationship is part of it, then we start looking at it as a domestic violence type crime.
Do we have an increase?
Well, I can just tell you what we're going to see an increase in numbers this year.
Why? Why do you say that?
Well, it may be that we have in Prescott Valley PD, we have our unit is specifically dedicated to investigating these types of crimes. There's no other departments in Yavapai County that have that. So we probably put a little more attention to the problem, and so we may end up taking, just by the fact that we have more resources, just end up taking more reports. So I can't say that it's actually occurring more in the public, but I think we're paying more attention to the problem that's always been there.
Okay, so you said this is the 4th year that the unit's been working specifically on domestic violence, because I think we had a couple of you guys in back when it started to talk about this topic too.
Right, we got the department got a grant from the Department of Justice, and it filters down through the state and all that. But we two hands. So there's Traci and I are full time. We have a part time administrative assistants, and then we work within the criminal investigations division at the department. So we interact with those other detectives and stuff, and they help us with their cases and vice versa. And you know, sometimes there's joint investigations that occur where they might be looking at a fraud or some kind of a sex offense or something like that. But then there's elements of domestic violence involved too, so we'll kind of work together on those things.
What is it like for you? Because Traci, you deal with the victims.
I do.
While James here deals with the suspect.
Correct.
What's it like for you on the victim's end?
It's hard. It's hard because they're victims of domestic violence. It's not easy to leave. And like we talked about before the show, while you're talking to them and interviewing them, they're trying to figure out how are they going to pay a bill, how are they going to feed their kids if the breadwinner's in jail. So it's really hard. They're kind of stuck, and we try to help them get to the resources to help them get out of the relationship and help them be safe. Tell
me about the kids, if there's kids involved.
That's even harder because they just saw mommy and daddy get in a fight. They're upset. And statistics show that kids that witness domestic violence typically grow up to behave the same way as their parents.
So how do we stop that? How do we stop this? It seems to me it's pretty much common sense. guys just shouldn't be walking up and punching their wives because dinner wasn't ready at 5 o'clock. It's really ridiculous that would be enough of an excuse for me. Tracy's my wife. I walk in and I can hit her because she doesn't have dinner ready by 5 o'clock.
Right.
How do you two, let me ask you two this, how do you handle walking into that situation? Let's say that is the case. Dad just flies off the handle because dinner's not ready at 5, or Jill spilled her milk on the coffee table. Just these small little things that a lot of us just look, get a towel. Oh, no big deal. I'll just wait until dinner's ready. What triggers this person to be able to be that violent? And how do you handle that in your own personal lives? To go and respond to this, you said 290 cases so far this year.
290 arrests.
290 arrests.
Over 600 cases.
For alleged cases of
domestic violence.
Domestic violence. So how do you go home and deal with this personally, on a personal level? Because you see some horrible stuff.
Really good at compartmentalizing and just not take it home. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it, but it just doesn't go home.
You don't get so much into the psychology of why people are doing what they're doing, but there's part of what we do is trying to solve the problem long term. So it's one thing to just go there, make an arrest or something like that, and go on to something else and hope that people are going to seek out the resources and, maybe change their behaviors and stuff like that. We have a little bit more of an active role of making sure they get to those resources and follow through with that stuff to try to helpfully break that cycle. And you do help people. It is rewarding. It can be frustrating. But it's, like I said before, it's complicated, and so you just try to do the best you can for the situation, and all situations are different, and it doesn't discriminate. It's not just low income; it's all across the spectrum, that we see. And some people, their method of solving their problems is they get angry and they resort to violence. I mean, I'm not better than anybody else, but I was taught by my parents pretty early on, and by my teachers and the background that I had, you don't hit girls, and you don't solve your problems with violence. And that's fortunately something it got ingrained in me, and it's fortunately not been an issue for me, because we all have pressures and stresses in our life, but like I said, for some people, resorting to violence is a way of venting their anger, and so it's more common than we might like to think, and it's an unfortunate thing. And like you said, I've seen statistics between 3.5 million to 10 million kids a year in the United States are exposed to domestic violence, and like Traci said, it very much tends to perpetuate itself if they think, well, that's just how things are, that's how things go, And sometimes even the victims are themselves. They witnessed their moms, say, being victims of it, and then they grow up and think, well, that's just the way. That's
just how life is. Yeah, exactly. Well, Dad punched Mom all the time, so she must have been getting out of line doing something wrong. So I get to do that too. That's how we handle this situation. So it does have to start in the home. We got to get the kids to not see that stuff anymore. But unfortunately, it's out there. I think we got a Cottonwood police report yesterday, and I think 3 out of the 5 things on there are domestic violence. And we've got a small one in there right now, but. It's just kind of gross. It's all gross. Let's take a break, okay? James Tobin and Traci Shulbin from Prescott Valley Police Department, the Family Violence Unit in studio today. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Stick around, countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I was in junior high the first time I caught my mom using denial. She had to have known her painkillers were missing because I kept stealing them. Her denial was so out of hand.
So she doesn't even know? I'm going out.
It was like I could get away with anything.
You kids have fun.
And that was when I knew. When she was addicted to denial.
Denial is a drug. Get help. The partnership at drugfree.org.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Now, some action from the courts. Billie Jean King renewing her rivalry with Arthritis. First set, furious volley, and right to the net for a winner. Beautiful forehand there. Arthritis, stunned. And here, match point. Billie Jean with the ace, taking it in straight sets. Afterwards, a jubilant Billie Jean King.
Tennis is a weapon for me with arthritis. There's nothing like it for me to hit a ball, run to the ball, anytime, any court. I'm ready. Let's go.
What's your weapon against arthritis? Find out at fightarthritispain.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio today. James Tobin and Traci Shulbin with the Family Violence Unit of the Presque Valley Police Department in studio today. A couple of phone numbers for you. Traci, 772-5149 is the emergency number?
No, that's the one directly to my desk. If you
Right to your desk. Right. 772-5149, and the non-emergencies 772-9267. They've also organized a candlelight vigil to bring awareness to domestic violence on October 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. And where's that going to be at again?
The Presque Valley Civic Center.
Presque Valley Civic Center.
Civic Circle.
So if you despise domestic violence, show up to that and show your support for it. All right, you guys get called out. You're responding to a domestic violence call. You get there, you've got dad, who's the suspect, let's say. You've got mom and 3 kids. Mm-hmm. How do we handle this situation?
Well, we try to first secure the scene and make sure, we've identified everybody that's involved, witnesses maybe, and make sure there's nobody hiding or fleeing from the scene or whatever. And then once the scene is secured and we've identified who we're dealing with, it's not, it's statistically about 75% of the time it will be the man, but it's not always the man.
Right.
But what we try to do is to identify the primary aggressor. Who's causing the problem? What is the problem and who's causing it? And what has created this situation that's caused somebody to call 911 or call us to be there? Mm-hmm. And you do interviews, and sometimes we will interview the kids if they're old enough to articulate what they saw and heard, and then we'll even increase that out to witnesses, neighbors, anybody else that might have called. Oftentimes, as I'm sure you can understand, people don't want to be involved.
Sure.
They'll call, but they don't want to get involved in the case. They feel concerned enough for any victims that might be involved, or they just want the noise to stop.
Should they be willing to jump in and say, hey, I'm the one that called you, I want to step up and help out, or is that really necessary at this point in time when you get there and you've got suspect, victim, kids? Is that enough?
It's not essential. That gives us a pretext to be there if somebody from the public calls. If they want to be involved in the case and write a statement or be interviewed, then that's great. That helps us because their peace is disturbed also. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, more often than not, people will say, I don't want to be involved, but here's what I heard, here's what I saw. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll say, don't use my name, because I fear retaliation or whatever. So that we try to be respectful of all that, because those people have to live there, and we're just visitors, basically. So
we don't want those calls to stop. You don't want the neighbors to stop calling. But then once you get there, Traci, you've got to sit down with the victims now.
Correct.
Okay, we've got them separated. You've got suspect, you've got victims. What do you say to mom?
Well, the first thing is we start with the interview. What happened? What's going on? And like we talked about earlier, they're going, how do I pay this bill? How do I feed the kids?
These are the excuses that they give you to stay in the relationship.
There's the reasons, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, those are their reasons.
Those are the common ones.
Yeah, and a lot of times I ask them, because they're not willing to get out of the relationship yet. They're scared.
Mm-hmm. Of what?
Of not being able to support their children, not being able to take care of their families. What's going to happen when he gets out of jail? It's going to be easier if I'm here, kind of the better the devil you know situation.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times I ask them, you know, where's your line in the sand? What does he have to do to you or your kids to make you realize this is not the safe place to be? And I don't ask for an answer for that. Sometimes I get calls a couple days later with an answer. But that's usually what I ask them, to make them realize this is not a safe place for them and their kids.
Is there a general answer when that comes around, that question? What is that line in the sand? Where is he going to go too far?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
For some people, it's, you know, touch my dog. Other people, it's touch my kids. Break stuff in the house, throw something at me. It's different for everybody.
Okay. All right. So what do we do to get them out of the house? What do you tell them when they say, look, I'm worried about, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. He makes all the money for the whole house. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I got to get the kids to school. I'm going to have to get a job. So what's going to happen to the kids during the day while I'm not home? Let's say we've got children who are not in school yet. Those are serious things in a person's life, and you take all that away, and all of a sudden you've got total chaos. So how do you fix that? What do we have in Yavapai County that can help with that?
Well, we have some resources. We've got Stepping Stones, which is emergency shelter.
Okay.
And we also have the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center. They have some awesome ladies there. The advocates, they are. They get them to the resources that they need. Because with our unit, we have more time to spend than patrol officers do. As you can imagine, they're call to call to call. We have more time to spend with them, but the advocates have even more time than we do to help them get the resources they need.
Now, do you guys do the follow-up at all? Do you go back and say, do you go back and find out if mom and the kids are doing okay, they got out and they're doing all right, or once you send them to the next agency that says, okay, we can take care of these folks, we can get them the help they need, and we'll find them a place to stay for a little while and get them back up on their feet again without his help. Do you ever go back and see how things turned out?
There are some of those we do, yes. And some will call me. You know, if I don't contact them, they'll call me and just say, we're doing good, we're awesome, we're out on our own, we're doing just fine.
Excellent.
And some people want that follow-up, and some definitely don't. You know what I mean? So you try to be respectful of that. We're not going to force ourselves on people that, don't want that relationship happening. But like Traci said, we've seen situations just like you described. No access to a car, no access to money except what the suspect gives them, no access to a phone except when the suspect allows them to use a phone, and they're basically stuck. And it's a pretty monumental decision for them to make that phone call and say, hey, I do need some help. And we've had some good, success stories. It's not our success, it's their success, but some good cases where they've actually made that step and moved on. And some of these resources, like we mentioned, can help maybe get them back home to where their parents live or where they have a support system, more so than what they have here locally. And these agencies that Traci mentioned, the Stepping Stones and the YFAC, Family Advocacy Center, those are based in Prescott Valley, but they serve all of Yavapai County.
Correct.
So we interact with them quite frequently, but so do a lot of other police agencies too. And that's another thing we do is we'll assist other agencies. Because there's not, like I said, not another department that has a unit like ours. So if they need us to help, we're certainly willing to do that too, to bolster their efforts of what they're trying to accomplish.
Dear old dad ever look at you, James, and you walk through the door and say, boy, I've got a problem. I just can't seem to stop hitting my wife and my kids. I've got a real problem. I need some help. Does that ever happen? Did anybody ever call you up and say, has anyone ever done that to you? Actually called you up and say, you know what, I got a problem. I'm violent towards women.
Rarely. But there are cases preemptively where people will say, I need to. People are very prideful. And sometimes a crisis has to occur before they will take a look at what's occurring. But there are some instances where people will voluntarily seek out some assistance or something like that.
Let me ask you this. Okay, we talked about the victims. Okay, we've got the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center. They could check with their local churches and to find out where they can go to get help on that. And they can always call you, Traci, and find out more information about that. Doesn't matter where in the county they're living. They call you and talk to you about it. If I'm a guy and I finally wake up and it dawns on me that I've got a violent problem and I decide, you know what, it's time for me to make a change, can I call you and say, look, James, I've got this problem. what do I do? How do I fix this problem in me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, there's resources, there's shelters for men, and there's programs available, and we can get them definitely headed in that direction if that's what seems like what needs to happen.
If somebody comes to you talking to you like that and asking you about that, they're probably ready to make a change.
Sure.
And there doesn't have to be a domestic situation. I mean, there have been, let's say there's been some in the past. Let's say it's a family unit. But if they're listening right now, and maybe they haven't had a domestic violence situation in a couple weeks, but they know one's brewing, mom just knows one's brewing, they should probably contact you prior to the next incident.
They can, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had several people that I've talked to who come in and say, nothing's happened yet, but I know the warning signs, the clouds are building, and I just want to make a report right now just to get this on record that I have, and so we'll do that. We'll take a report if that's what they want to do, and if it looks like intervention, by us intervening and talking to the other person involved would help, then we'll do that. If they just want to at that point get something documented, and that means they're starting to make their safety plan, to say, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this, and that's a good thing, because it's you hate to have to think like that, but sometimes you do. You have to prepare for the worst, and so that's all part of it.
Let's take a break. We're almost done. James Tobin and Traci Shulbin in studio with the Family Violence Unit with the Prescott Valley Police Department talking domestic violence. That's what October is, National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm Paul David. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Yes, ready?
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Fire can happen at any time. What would you try to save?
My family photos.
My grandfather's war memorabilia.
My dogs.
I'm firefighter Brandon Wacker with the Cotton Fire Department. A working smoke detector is your best defense in the event of a fire. Make sure you have a smoke detector in every room except your kitchen. Test them monthly and change the battery once a year. Take the time to save the things you can't replace.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many. But what if you've had just one too many? Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Countywide. We are out of time. Real quick, a couple of phone numbers for you. To get a hold of Traci Shulbin, call 772-5149. Doesn't matter where you are in the county, you'll talk to him, right, Traci? And the non-emergency reasons, 772-9267. We wanted to mention that in the Verde Valley, we do have the Verde Valley Sanctuary.
The Verde Valley Sanctuary, correct, yeah.
Verde Valley Sanctuary. We've got the Yavapai Family Advocacy Center, which covers all of Yavapai County, and you mentioned one other.
Well, we have a community response team, and the people from the Verde Valley Sanctuary are involved in that.
Okay.
Just people from across the county in a problem-solving coalition-type method to look at the domestic violence situation.
Is there help out there?
Absolutely.
There's help out there.
Is.
Okay.
Yep.
And it works. We've seen it work. Okay. We're out of time. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Hopefully we scratch the surface and maybe someone will get out of the situation before it gets worse. All right. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.
This has been Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's Countywide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.